Er det nu?
Projektet, som er 13 stillinger på PhD og postdoc.
Og dem kan jeg så...
Og der er nogen,
det der hvor del af kalenderen, når hun skriver ting ind, så popper det ind på min telefon og sådan noget. Og så er hun i gang med at søge til
som jeg har arbejdet med de sidste 2 år.
Og så her næste semester, så skal vi praktik. Og hun har ikke fortalt mig ansøgningen, og der er så totalt meget, hun kan komme i gang med. Jeg har taget en måned eller sådan noget, og skrevet bare en ansøgning. Og den har hun så skrevet færdig i dag, så I stadig rigtig gerne vil. Der gik der 2 timer, så ringede de hende op og spurgte, om hun kom til samtale og sådan noget. Så var jeg helt vildt op at ringe. Og det var jeg også, fordi så slipper jeg måske for at hjælpe resten.
Take another 5 minutes because someone will for a walk and now we can't start.
Ja. Jamen, der kommer vist 5 sekunder, før den går i gang, eller hvad. Jeg testede den mange gange før, så meget mærkeligt, hvis den ikke virker.
Yeah, we know. But you should ask them like how you don't accept artists for it's paid.
Jeg har altid læst min studiemail, og jeg ved men det bliver bare lidt trukket med.
That's super. They should just take the 6 best. Bureaucracy.
Ja, det kan være. Men det er sådan fra 14 til 24, så det er lige sådan, at hvis aldersspændende... Ja, det er godt, der er
Og den er sgu live. Den er live. På Twitch, på Chrome her, der er den live.
Så det er sådan lidt læringsspil indover et eller andet sted. Det skal være, det er sådan tilgængeligt. Så det er framework og design, så det lærer faktisk.
Okay.
That's that your job.
Ikke på min telefon, men jeg har lige tjekket på Twitch her, og det kører den fint.
Det er en forbindelse, så det er ude på DTU, der lige kan sige, vi sender
Hvad?
Jeg er ikke forbindelse til ude på DTU, der lige kan skrive, vi sender
Pretty brilliant and up. Like they must go well hand in hand.
Also set up stuff before.
Mærkeligt, at ikke Thiel ikke finder det her på.
Får jeg noget til?
Search, og så burde der også være en mulighed.
Okay. Hello. Welcome to Film School and information about DADIU. My name is Thomas Hovald. I'm the principal teacher on DADIU and basically designing the course with my colleagues Christine and Martin, who sits down here. Christine is our producer. She's head of the studies, and Martin is coordinating and doing a lot of the communication and all the practical stuff. We normally have 100 plus students at DADIU, so these guys are indispensable, and you will work as much with them as you will with me. But today I have the honor of introducing you and answer questions about DADIU. And I did one thing because I think one is what these old geezer is standing and saying, because I'm living on it, so I'm biased to if I like it or not. So I thought, why not asking a programmer, Thomas Gislason, and Amanda, who's just asked out now. She was project manager, and I think they can, give their version of what. I basically asked them, why should anyone go for DADIU, and would you do it? No, I don't think I would ask you, would you do it again? But I think, could you tell them why they should do it, or what they should be specifically careful about? Because DADIU is not for the faint of heart, I have to say. what we're going to do now is I have 20 minutes with some slides that probably should sort of give you both the framework of things, and then we have our two students who can say things, but I mean, it's a conversation as much as an information, so please feel free to ask questions if you want. I'm doing this in English, and I have to stand within the light rectangle, because that's where I get light, because that thingy that's standing there is picking up this as a signal and broadcasting it to ITU, where a lot of the students over there was permitted to participate due to some other education. So we have these talking heads floating around, but I hope you forgive us for that. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you a little video. It takes 3 minutes, and it shows you the result of 6 weeks' work presented in pieces of 30 seconds with some of the music and the sounds that were used in the games. So, and I think that sort of gives you an idea what was possible last year with the constraints and the challenges each team was doing. We have 6 teams. We had 105 students last year starting, and they were about approximately 18 people per team. I think you're all very versed in working in groups of 3, 4. Dealing with a team of 18 is the true challenge of DADIU. It's like riding on a tiger's back. So let's see what they did in 6 weeks, guys. Enjoy.
Okay, here we go. If these sentries spot me, this could be the shortest rescue mission. Nice. With this I can rotate the floors. Don't worry. I'll get you out of here. Those were the games. It took 6 weeks from they started, and
until it was delivered to the Android Play Store where you can find it and play them. And I think 2 of them was also converted to the iOS platform where you can find them if you want to try them out. These are the guys who did all the things. Come on. Yeah. So that's the final day. I'd love to show you a before and after picture. They are thinner, I promise you. And you can see it's good for complexity. This is in the zombie picture. That's a tradition we do. And that is about 110 people. They take that much space. We are on our 11th year doing this thing. And I think Christine has been with us all the way. I've been somewhat in the background before coming in 3 years ago. And Martin has been with us, what, 8 years now? 7, 8 years? 5. Feels like 8. Sorry, that was too close. You can see it's basically a collaboration with a lot of different studies around in Denmark, from Aalborg, Aarhus, and Copenhagen. There's a list later on. But it's something like the design school, mediology in Aalborg, design, digital design from Aarhus, DQ, ITU, etc. So there's a lot of studies going in here. Animation workshop in before, etc. It's all in English, and I mean, if you're sitting in a group of Danes, you can naturally speak Dane. But everything we do, lectures, teaching, is always done in English. I think it's not mandatory, but it helps. You can speak Danish, or you just know how to work in Danish groups. Participation is mandatory, and that's a big thing. I mean, we have few rules, but that is one. When we have a teacher, I bring in people from the industry. That we don't have really teachers here. They are all people who sort of been doing animation or programming or whatever for years. And I take them out of what they're doing because they're extremely busy people. So it's completely discouraging that sometimes people sort of think I have more important stuff to do. So that I'm very frank, I'm very open about it. I have no other rules. Mandatory is to show up and in time. Those 2 things are really important. It's very hard to manage a team with 18 people if 1 or 2 always comes in 45 minutes later than everybody else. I'm just saying it in advance because that way it's much easier for you guys to work out there. And if you know with yourself, I can't live with that. I need my sort of morning coffee and my mood things. That's okay. Then please don't show up here because it's really necessary. You're here and you invest 100% in it. Someone asked me yesterday, can I have a girlfriend? I said, no, you can't. Can I have a work? No, you can't. What about the cat? No cat. Okay. So I mean, invest in it because that's the value of DADIU. And that's sort of the poetic way to say the same thing. We don't jump 1 and 1 and 1 to come to a higher degree. Computer game is truly about collaboration. It's not about a singular idea coming into expression. It's about how do you amalgamate, programmers with designers, with sound designers, and with QA people. And there's a lot of will going on. There's a lot of negotiation going on. And the ability to, I mean, how many of you made a game ever? Okay, you guys know it's difficult. It's easy to start it. It's really hard to get it in the box, right? Yeah or no? No, it was not difficult. Oh, great. See, this is what we do. We have 6 teams out and working, 4 in Copenhagen and 2 in Aalborg. There will be periods, if you live in Copenhagen, we tend to let people from where they are coming from geographically. We try to let them stay there because it's easier for everyone. But sometimes people from Aalborg or Aarhus has to come to Copenhagen to make the balance work. And sometimes people from Copenhagen have to go to Aalborg. It depends on how many people we are there, and we need to spread it evenly. I think Martin and Christine is basically jumping through, in 10 small loops to make it work for you guys. But sometimes we have to say that is how it has to be. But I think we manage every year to find a solution that fitted for people. Every team consists of certain roles. So you can say in a sense, DADIU is about role-playing. We're role-playing in reality. Hi and welcome. Right. We roll. We have these different roles, and I think that's one of the things we will focus at in the beginning. There's some things inherently in game development that's really difficult. I think that also explains that you guys bring in all the stuff you need from where you have been educated, and the last many years you invested in your education. That's what you bring into play here. We don't teach you new tricks. We teach you, give you a framework where you can bring in all the things you can learn, and from that point you will learn immensely much more. But we don't, as such, give you, except for 3 weeks, but we're much more practicality oriented. So that's why I'm sort of emphasizing this thing with the role thing, because I've seen over the years when people work, that's I worked in IO for some years, I worked in Square Enix, in Funcom, and in Ivanov making Magnus and Mythen games. So I've been a little bit around. I've been participating in about 30 game productions. And it's always, what you could say, a point of conflict where you have overlapping roles. You can define a role as, me as a person, I can have 2 roles. I can be project manager, but I can also be programmer. In reality, I can't, because I can't program. But you understand as a person, I can have more roles. That's what you have on an indie team, where you're only 3 or 4 people. Everybody has different, hats, because you need to cover all these bases. In a giant production like this, we spread it much more out. We have a game director, we have a game designer, we have a level designer. And how do those are a typical example of where people find it hard because they're sharing the tools, but they're using it for different means. And that's a thing we're going to focus at a lot this year. So how do we get the best out of being, game designer when I have a game director and I also have a level designer? And how do you, as a game designer, talk with the programmers? And how do the programmer talk with the level designer one day, and 2 minutes later, he has to talk with the project manager? Those are the things that people find really hard. And we have found ways to make that entertaining and fun and not theoretical. You're going to role play it, and you're going to make tons of games. Tons is 3, okay? And a board game. But that's one of the things. The other thing we need you to find out is getting a pipeline. How do you generate a pipeline when you have that many people? I think the value of having that many people is that it's like, as I said, is riding on a tiger's back. Nobody can control it. And I think the people who try to sort of like steer it too harshly, they find out that that's a dangerous thing to do. It might get upset, that little catchy thingy you're riding on. The trick is to get all these valued people to working together in I wouldn't say harmony, because that stinks, but you get my point. How do you get the best out of everybody's potential? So that's what we're doing here. So pipeline, roles, and having fun. How do we make great games? What is fun? That's what we're gonna use. And everybody is needed. I tried a couple of years ago. I tried to sit down with Christine and some Søren, who was a teacher at DADIU earlier. We tried to sort of work out a description of the role. It is not set in stone. It is our feeble, suggestion. This is how it could be. But in the end, DADIU is about how you define your role and how you live it. So. But you can find more about these things if you go to our homepage, dadiu.dk. There's tons of information there. This is the structure of your 14 weeks at DADIU. We start 29th August. So we start a little bit earlier than everybody else. It's a Wednesday, and we will go from Copenhagen, Aalborg, Aarhus, wherever people are. We'll go to Asker, which is a super nice high school. Højskole. Is that a high school in English? Folk High School. Yeah, Folk High School. And we have 3 days there. We're going to have a lot of theater thingy, because I'm a theater director of background, and I do a lot of these sort of like having fun, getting close, and learning other people's names really fast. And you can do that by having fun and making games. So, I talk for 45 minutes, and then we start playing games. And that is about having fun and trying what is it to make rules, playing with the rules. In the evening, we're going to have some crazy shit going on. It is before the beer. Afterwards, you can, at 10 o'clock, approximately, you can go have a beer if you want, but that's not how we socialize. We do it because you're getting up really early the next day. So I'm just warning you. It is not a Rustour. It is fucking hard work. Sorry, my French. The next day, we're going to make board games. So we start out early in the morning. There comes in a geezer. One of my friends, he made, I think, 4 or 5 board games, got them out, published it, earning money. He's simply the nicest guy walking on earth. Ole Steines, he has been a designer at IO, super guy. Going to introduce you, everybody out in groups, make board games. You have a few hours. Then comes in Thomas Vigil. Yes, the Mr. Thomas Vigil. He's a journalist from Politiken and at Valekilde and a lot of things. He's really one of the sharpest guys in Denmark about these things. And these two guys are going to play games with you, play your own games, discuss your games with you, giving you feedback. And in the night, the game directors has prepared some games for you that will come and invite you and starting up. Yeah, you didn't know that, but now you know. Then the Friday is a lot of boring shit. Practical stuff about how we're going to do it, questions, all these things. And then Monday morning, bang, we go into the production room and then you begin to start making games. You're getting 2 days of course in Unity. If you want to, I think it's Unity. I think it's 95% decided. But if you're clever, download the engines, begin to play with it. See the tutorials. It's a steep learning curve and it is so boring. I'm sorry, I have to say it. But if you want to make games, you have to be able to use the engine. You have to be able to set up a scene, commit things to the engine, get it out again. Also the directors, very important. Everybody should be able to go in and play with the editor. It's very important. Make games, and during that week, people come out and teach you the stuff you're sitting and working with. We're changing this from last year. There's also a slight percent chance that we can't do everything we dream about, but the idea is that I think if you should choose, do you want to have, 5 days of 6 hours of, teaching in a room with a blackboard, or do you want to go into the room and begin to make a game, and then if you fail, we pick you up, we teach you how to do it, and you try again? I think I go for the latter one. I've been thinking you guys have been studying for what? Between 15 and 20 years. I think our idea here is much more fun. It's going to be much more directed to where you're weak. I love all the things you can do. That's great. We should focus on the things you find hard. And that's what we do this way. So it's very tailor-made to every team. Then you have 2 weeks to make a game. You get some ridiculous limitations. I'm going to sit down and write some really nasty stuff. You're not allowed to do anything. Because I want you guys not to say, we have 5 days, let's make World of Warcraft. And then you make a lot of thin shit. I want to have some really clear stuff that's deep in quality of graphics, gameplay, feedback from user interface, all these things. Small ground, deep quality. That's the motto here. Then you have a week to sit down and reflect. You have to write some papers to your school. I know that for sure. You have to we have to get some guys out and give you more hours in Unity. So we will try to find a way, how do we help you with the things you are specifically bad at? That's the challenge for Christine and me these days, to find a way we can do that dynamically without getting, but just spending a lot of money, because we don't have that. And then the last 2 weeks of that period, you will make the game again. You scrap your computers, you empty everything, and you do everything one more time. And we do it because I see sometimes when you're teaching something, you make a report, you make a product, you make something, you get some feedback, and then we move on. Any one of you playing instruments? Yeah. How many times did you pick up a sheet music and just played it? Ever? I mean, it takes hours playing the same song again, yesterday, right? And there you go on for hours, and everybody's going crazy. But that's needed. You have to go back and repeat doing it. So that's why, because this is so complex what's going on. So again, you have, instead of only having 5 days to make a game, now you have 7 days to make a game. And we still have people who can get out and sort of pick up the things you find specifically hard. So that's the idea, okay? Then we have the competence period. It's 3 weeks where most of people is sent out, and now that we send them from, we collect them certain places at the schools. That means all the level designers are in one room together. All the game designers are in one room together. So everybody is getting a very focused theoretical teaching. The idea is that you're coming in with bruises and blue marks and a lot of laughter and having a good time with your team. And now we go in and have some time to sort of delve into the details of it. And if you have theoretical questions, that's where we do that. And we have some, I mean, we're very proud of the teachers we have. I mean, they come with international experience, they are seasoned game makers, and they're completely wonderful people. And they're also there to get your business card, That's one of the perks with going to DADIU, because all the people who's coming in, one quality, they're not teachers. There's no pedagogical thinking beyond what I'm trying to push to them. And I'm not a pedagogue. I'm just trying to make, this insanity having some kind of idea. The second thing is that these people are doing the thing they're talking about every day. A lot of them owns companies. So I mean, these people should be really interesting for you guys to meet. And if you're clever, you go out afterwards, you met them and say, can I write you when I'm done? Because that sounds really good. And a lot of them will say, yeah, please. That's why they come. They enjoy it a lot, meeting you guys, hearing what your questions, your fights, the things you're saying. That's really interesting for them. But the other part is that there is definitely a job market thingy going on. After that, we have a lead group. And the lead group we need, because sitting down, I sometimes compare this to like playing in a band. Playing in a band with 4 people is rather difficult. Playing in a band with 18 people is a bit more difficult. It's like a big band. And when you get that many people, the problem is everybody wants to get heard. You get this much to say because the day is short and people talk for a long time. So how do you optimize that process? One of the ways we do it is that we appoint people to take certain jobs for them. We have a project manager. The project manager, nobody understands what the project manager does until the day the project manager is sick and everything just goes like that. So that's what the project manager does. What does the pipeline programmer do? What does the animator do? All these things. So we have these leads for these people. So we have an art director basically helping the art team, the animation team, finding a collaborative visual expression of what you're trying to do. So we have leads. Leads is not an honorary title. You're not a better person because you're leader. You basically have a different set of tasks to perform than the people who are not leads. I promise you, every hand is needed. They have a week to come up with an idea. And some of the ways we're going to work this year, we have a wiki and we have something called Podio. Those are means to make you guys talking together when you're separate distance. That's always an obstacle, and people always find it sort of like, why do we have to learn this? Yeah, that's the tool we're using. It's I hated it for 2 weeks and then I got used to it, so it works. The lead group have 5 days to come up with an idea that everybody can say, that's what we're going to do, because now we have 6 weeks to do it. So there you go back to your production room and you're together for the next 6 weeks. And here you are alone. I will come out once a week for 1 hour And some of the times I will have a guest with me. I'm bringing in people with, the last one we're bringing in is basically a business, head of operations at one of the biggest game companies we have in Copenhagen. And he's basically coming in and looking at your product as a product. I think one of the hardest things being in the art industry, whether it's film, theater, or games, is it always starts as some hard block, something you dreamt of, and then ending out as a product. It's yogurt. It is just a game among all the other games. And that's some of the things we're touching upon as well, because that's really tough. In the end, we have a few days, 3 or 4 days, to evaluate. You meet people from the industry coming in, and you basically have a session. What worked? What did you learn? What are you thinking? What do you want? How do you want to bring it with you? And we end up in this room, as you saw in the first picture. Everybody down here, after we have been through 2 hours of festivitas and showing the games. Hopefully as funny for the guests as possible, but it's trying to be quite fun. And then the students basically go out and have a great party afterwards. In April sometime, if there is interest, if there is a need, we arrange a workshop with the possibility to port your game to the iOS version. So that gave you, I hope, some information. This is an example of a game that was made in the minigame production. They had 5 days to do it, and this was the second time they did a game. And this is a film about this ice cube thing. It goes on for hours. I have to stop. So, I think this is a repetition of what we already talked about. If you didn't hear it, now you could read it. We move on. Role-playing, a lot of role-playing, a lot of understanding the processes, basically working with guidance more than mentoring, discussion. I can say one of the biggest things we did last year is that we found a way to encompass all the articles, the great books people have been reading, all the great articles you guys find in everyday life. And I'm putting it into this podium so we have a collection of great articles and stuff. So the knowledge you're bringing in is definitely a very, very important part of value, that you can share that knowledge, because sharing is good when you make games. I think there's some festivals the games are sent out, and sometimes we win something, but you know what? Every time we win something, an award or people getting praise for something, that's super great. But honestly, the real important thing about DADIU, I think one of the things I saw last year is a very interesting story, and there's nobody of them is in here, so we can easily talk about them. One of the teams had in their minigame production, they made a wonderful game, really, really funny game. And everybody they could see it themselves. It was fun to play. And second time they did it completely as asked, they made it even better. So the second time they did this mini game, it was, man, they were good. And one of the things we said to them, now take care now, guys, because now you're proud. And you're sort of walking, like this. Are you talking to me? And when they had evaluation in the room, they talked about our game. And yes, we did. And it was just this feeling in the room, feeling, Everybody was feeling really good. And the other team that sat next to them, they made the worst piece of crap I ever opened on a computer. That was terrible. And I was basically, mooning them. Because, how could you do it, guys? I'm going to tell you a little bit more about these guys in a minute. And they were basically sitting and saying, I hate making games, and the other guys on the team are stupid, and I hate the game director. I'll shoot him. You know, everybody was like, ugh. And then came the main game, you know, the big game. And these guys, they came in and said, now we're going to show them make a game. And they did. And in the second week, we visited them. We asked I had sort of like, something is wrong here. And we asked them, so how far are you? And yeah, they weren't done because we have a beta. You know, everything has to be done by the end of week 3. So these guys, I was asked, can you tell me when you're done from a technical point of view? Any programmers in here? Okay, there's a few programmers. That's good. Because these guys, I mean, everything depends on these guys. I'm sorry, directors. I'm sorry, game designers. We also want to carry a little bit of load. But these guys is your bandwidth. Because they makes the magic work. And I said, you know, Sigurd, now is the time to be very, very honest. Can you tell me when you're done with all the features you want into the game? And he basically lifted up, and I think he took his best move in his life and said, honestly, no. And I said, you're out of control. This is basically how it feels to sitting on a fiasco. Enjoy it, guys. And they made simply the worst piece of crap. Because I think they forgot to ask the right questions. They got sort of like, you know, like syruped into this oofy feeling. And so nobody asked the nasty question, is this fun? I always teach people in this very simple lesson. If you have a game you want to do, the best test is go home to your mom. She's doing something busy, and you say, Mom, I got an idea for a game. How many seconds do you have to pitch it, right? Before she goes on, good, and then she's gone, right? So that's a good way to start. Can you tell people what's it about and why is it fun? You know, rapido. So that's one of the good stories. The other story is about the other team, you know, the guy sitting and saying, the game director is stupid and I hate the programmers and, you know, life is miserable. And they came and pitched their game idea for the full game. And in came, you know, 6 guys and girls like this and sat down, and the energy was like sort of dead. And after 5 minutes, we have to say, you know, who came up with this drivel, this idea? I mean, you made the worst game ever in the mini game, and now you're topping it and making the worst piece of graduation game ever. What's wrong with you guys? Game director is stupid. We hate the programs, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, the problem was you don't like each other. You didn't break the code that games is made by people. It's potential. And every time this guy, the game designer, says something, the game director goes like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. And the game designer is nasty in his mouth and basically, you know, cracking jokes about everybody all the time. So he feels like a bitter, you know, 80-year-old geezer, and he's 22. Come on. So the recipe was, you know, go out and find some beers and sit down and begin to laugh. And when you're laughing, then you come up with game ideas. I should mention that game idea they came up with is the only game I heard the guy from Kilo said, I would like to hear more about that one. So there's a secret here, that the biggest obstacle on DADIU is not your abilities as a game designer or as a, you know, the wonderful person you are. The problem is all the others. It's completely like this country. If it wasn't for all you guys, I would have a perfect time, right? But then we can't do it. We can't do the things that can't be done, because computer games is complicated, especially of this size. So that's what DADIU is about, honestly. One of the groups that we invented a couple of years ago, and this is sort of the last thing I'm going to say before we leave these guys to tell you the real truth from the horse's mouth. I insulted them and called them horses, I'm sorry. Anyway, we have a group called QA Quality Assurance and User Experience, and Philip, who I met in Monday and was one of the students from last year, he said, when I got that, he said, that is what you can get, because I only have 6 positions as game designers. We only have 6 positions as level designer, and we don't make 2 of them. So what are we going to do with all the rest? And we had been for many years talking about, wouldn't it be great to have quality assurance as part of the production, because that's what you do out there on the other side of these holy walls of education. In reality, people use quality testers, and they use user experience testing, and there's a lot of jobs to get there. And the thing we found out is the people who does that, they come from the same education as the game designers. And it ended up, they said, you know what, I learned more about game design from a professional point of view than the people sitting and making the game. The reason why is they're working with 6 designs, and they are witnessing 6 different processes. They have this, because you saw all these games, they're very different, and the way they were done was very different. And they get close to all these things because each of them have a responsibility for one of the games, and at the same time they're testing everything. So some of you who are applying for game design, project manager, level designer, and these roles, I mean, please do. And when we pitch together the different people, because we're going to interview you, you apply for it, and if then you get a date, and 2 days before that date, you will get a task. I'll send you a challenge. It's a design challenge. And whether you're basically going for level design, production manager, it's a little bit different task, but it's sort of something where we can start to talk. Then we meet for 20-minute interview, and when that's done, Christine and I and Martin and the teachers from your institutions, we begin to pitch how could the team be from the management team, because I said that. I'm basically picking the person who's going to be game designer, level designer. A trick to get my attention, I see what am I looking for. And I think there's a tendency that I go for people, not specifically sort of unique ideas that are not really important, but what I'm really looking after is people who understand this by communicating clearly, visually, short, and at the same time is interested in getting a trip in the blender, because having these positions is you're basically being bashed at from all the other guys, and it takes sometimes a little bit of stamina to get there. But that's something we try, and the rest we offer a role as a QA and user experience. It's a different task, and some of your courses are different. They go on testing procedures, communication, because what happens when you get your results on testing the game? Do you think the game team is saying, yeah, great, thank you, the truth? No, they're going to hate you and throw balls at you and basically not reading your stuff. So how do you bring these information back to the team? That's the big trick when you're QA and user experience. But we have ways to do that. I think application starts.
You can apply online from next week.
Yeah.
And the deadline is April 1st.
Yeah. So April 1st is deadline, and we open for application on the DADIU homepage, and you will find it in there next week. Okie dokie. Yep. These are some of the other things we do. Christine and Martin is doing a lot of work with the Spilbar. We have bi-monthly some really interesting guest talks. A lot of people from the industry. Everybody meet, 200, 300 people, meet together, have some few drinks, talking with each other, and it's a wonderful place to get in there. Another secret about working in the Danish games industry, network. You need a lot of network. So join in there you meet people. If some of you want to continue working with your game idea because you like each other and the game idea is good, we have this opportunity. You can go to the greenhouse. One of the results of that work was Back to Bed team, who are now, 12 people? And on their second game. And if you haven't played Back to Bed, it's a really nice little puzzle game, really beautiful. And finally, we have all these play seminars. All these, that's 1 or 2 a year? 1 a year, yes. So that's some of the other things. If you have any questions, any comments, any ideas, please write us. We pick up everything. We're not maybe the fastest people to respond, but we read everything. And I think also we have a tendency to listen to what people say, because that's so much part of it. And that's, I think, is a perfect setup for you guys. Should we let Amanda come first? Or you can go together if you want. Thomas and Amanda, I think you present yourself better than I can do.
Alright.
Take some tea if you want. Jamen, nej, Thomas. Så, og så husk det med din klip. Yes. Ved du hvad, vi fik den næste side. Jeg skulle lige også tilbage med tilbage. Der. Ja, du må ikke gå længere frem end der.
Alright. Hello everyone, my name is Samantha, and last year I attended DADIU as a project manager. I'm from ITU where I study game design, and when I applied for DADIU, I also applied as a position for a game designer. I basically just wanted to get in. I was like, okay, game design sounds like the more fun option here, and it's like more close to home. While project management was something about leadership, something about showing authority and maybe bossing people around. I'm like, don't think I'm very bossy. I'm kind of shy of conflict, and I'm used to being like one of the creative ones who want to be part of the artistic process. But some stupid part of my brain was like, I bet being a project manager would be really challenging. And it really was. And that turned out to be the right decision. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not very tall, so I have to stand by the wall here. But yes, I started as a project manager not really knowing exactly what to do. But I thought, okay, I'll roleplay it. Because DADIU is a lot about roles and figuring out which role how I should find myself in this role, actually. And I think one of the big surprises is that everyone comes with totally different expectations when they go to DADIU. It's really easy after studying with like similar students for a few years to think, okay, I know this process. I'd done like a few small game productions at ITU, so I had some experience with how it worked. I'm like, yeah, okay, I've worked with artists and programmers. It was tricky, but I've tried it before. So I had some expectations, but suddenly you're 15 people from totally different backgrounds. Some people are used to working solo, some people are used to working in teams, but without doing cross-disciplinary work. And some people have applied and have gone to interviews and really want to be there, and some people have to be there as a part of their education. And getting all these people to work together as a community and make one product that's consistent, that is really difficult. And as a project manager, I had to be the facilitator and figure out, okay, how do we do this? How can I motivate people? How can I make them run in the same direction? Because generally, I think I had a motivated team, but people have very different ideas, different preferences, and both like socially and professionally.
That's a good setup for Thomas, because accidentally you were on the same team, but that's not what we're going to talk about. Life as a programmer.
Yes, my name is Thomas, and I was a programmer also on Team 4 with Amanda as my project manager. I study mediology at AU, and I'm doing my thesis now. Yes. I just want to ask, how many programmers were there? How many think they're going to be programmers at DADIU? Welcome to DADIU. Just send in the application and do whatever, but you're basically in. All right. I think so. Yeah. So programming something that's as large as a game, especially whatever the creative team thinks up in this in the days they have for the pre-production. Always a challenge, but programmers, we are always really enthusiastic and really optimistic, and we say, yeah, we can do it in half the time, and it's going to be perfect from the get-go. Yeah, it's a great experience. I specifically worked as a QA programmer. That didn't mean that I didn't have anything to do with the I programmed a lot of the stuff in the game also, but I was also the contact with the QA UX team. And I every night before I went home, I sent them a build and I wrote up a changelog and sent it to them. So there's also stuff like that going on in the programming team. It's not we're not all sitting and programming how the character should jump or something like that. Somebody will take the responsibilities of doing the UI, for example, and somebody will take the responsibilities of programming an AI or a pathfinding system or whatever you want for whatever the game demands. Don't think that you don't have anything to say in the design of the game. The programmers are really, as far as I know, the most creative people in any room they're in. It's a wonderful thing to be in on something like this big, and the programmers have a lot of power and a lot of say. I can just tell you that. So it's great. Yeah, Amanda was a great
And a
project
great
manager.
responsibility, you forgot to say.
Responsibility. Yeah, a lot of responsibility is on you because basically what we did and what I would recommend anybody else do is the last week, just before release, send the artists away. Send everybody away, have the programmers sit and concentrate on making everything work, because the week before, the artists are gonna invariably have something really complicated or something they think is a small change, but suddenly changes the whole thing, and you have to go back and then there's all the bugs, and you're gonna like really be angry with the QA department because god damn it, nobody's gonna find that bug when they play the game. Nobody's gonna press this button exactly 42 times. Nobody's gonna go up in this corner and wait 2 seconds and then see the character fall through the floor, because you don't think about that as a programmer. You just sit there, you prototype, you make it work, and then hey, it works. But then they have this guy in another room, in another building, who actually does all these things with the game and finds all the little bugs and flaws that are in the code. But man, use your UX and QA managers.
So what did you learn from being at I mean, instead of going in this semester, you could have gone to work in a company, right? What do you think you learned from doing that work? And also Amanda, I mean, both of you, what did you bring with you? Now you're 3 months away, you can sort of see it in a different way.
Yeah. Do you want to take this one first?
Yeah, sure. I think it was a really great learning experience for me to try to separate myself from the creative process to some extent. Instead of being the one who should come up with the ideas or do the drawings or animate the characters, stuff I had done before, I had to step out of that process and kind of create the frame around it. I'm like, okay, I have this team, they're going to make this game, they're going to paint this beautiful picture, but I'm not supposed to decide what the motive should be. That's up to them, but I should provide them with a frame, with a canvas, and some good brushes, and make sure that they have all the resources they need. I have to make sure that if they start misunderstanding each other, that I sort it out. So some of the stuff I learned was also to like trust my gut. Be like, okay, I can feel there's a conflict coming up here, something is not entirely right, people are not on the same page, and trying to be proactive and solve it before it gets too bad. A lot of it was also about learning how to put my foot down. I mean, really balancing between being patient and understanding to some extent, because we are working with people and people are totally different. And to treat them equally, you have to treat them differently, so to speak. But also sometimes not being patient, but being, the bad guy, being the troll. But but that deadline is tomorrow and you have to decide now. Okay, you have half an hour, that one, you have to cut one. That's also part of being a project manager. So lots of social skills, lots of communication. And it's really a learning process. You don't really know what works until you try it out. So that's also an iterative process, trial and error, and constantly examining your own behavior and trying to modify it. That's the only way you can affect other people. I think that's one of the main things I learned. So.
Yeah, I basically learned to trust myself as a programmer, because I'm from Mediology. It's just like we have programming and we do a lot of programming, but we're not necessarily known as, where everybody from Mediology is going to go out and get a great programming job in the biz. But so I thought, oh, like a week before we went to ESCO, I'm gonna meet all these guys from DTU and DECO, and they're all gonna already have jobs in the industry where they do all this really fancy work and stuff. But when we really got started, I immediately found out that we all started from the, like, all these guys, they might have worked with databases and stuff like that in the industry for a long time, and they might know a lot about how to construct algorithms, or maybe how to construct your own operating system. But that doesn't mean they know how to use Unity at all. And as a mediology, I have used Unity a lot. So as long as you know Unity, you don't have to be an expert mathematician and expert coder. You just, if you can use just the tools that are in Unity, and you know C#, which is the language they use, we are going to be on pretty even footing with everyone else who's going to be there. So even if you want to be a programmer, but you don't think, oh, I won't measure up, I don't know enough, don't be scared. That's what I learned. And I learned more programming during my year at DADIU that I have done during the other half of my master's, or maybe a couple of years before that, because you sit down and you work, and you have all these other talented guys sitting around you who also are experiencing this, and you're going to help each other. You're going to talk about stuff, and maybe something you don't know, somebody else is going to be really good at because he once did a thing that demanded exactly this that you're trying to solve now. And you absorb all that knowledge. And of course, Google is your friend. You're going to use the whole graduation game. You're going to, if you're lucky enough to get a thing with 2 screens, you're basically just going to have the whole internet streaming into your eyes from the one side, and then coding here. Whenever you're in doubt, look at Google. Oh yeah, that's how. Oh. And then you're hopefully going to remember that the next time you're going to need that piece of information.
Anything that works.
It's amazing.
Anything that works. I think it's fair now. If any of you, because we're nearing the time, I think we have. Can we go on to 10 past, something like that? Otherwise, tiptoe out. But I think if you have any questions for any of us, it can be for Christine and Martin, practical stuff, things about the content of the teachings, or these 2 good guys telling what their experiences. Please feel free. Yeah.
So you said you couldn't have a cat, but by that you mean there's a lot of work in it, right? So how long is
I think we tend to say to people, try to have. We say we start at 9.
Yeah.
Some teams find out due to the boss or something that it's better to start 9:15. But that's up to you. I'm gonna insist you start together. Everybody has to be there in the morning. And we say, okay, after 8 hours of work, you should let people go home, because there's a tendency in our eagerness that we burn out too early. And I think having good, sound job habits is a good thing. So from our side, we say, use your 8 hours and use them effectively. I always say to the project managers, how much work can they do in a day? How much work can a programmer do in a day? And we always end up, recommend, say, 4 hours of effective work. The rest is, coffee, talking, internet, asking questions, understanding what's going on, communicating with each other. And that's why it's very easy to overscope. I think scoping is one of the true challenges in this business. How much time can we do with the resources we have, and what is the talents on the team? And that's why I'm saying one of the tricks to have a great DADIU is have this notion in your back of your mind. How can I get the best out of the other guys? Because you are good. I know you're good. Your education level is stunning, what we see here. So that's not the question. The question is, can you bring it into something fruitful with the others? And it doesn't help you sit there 14 hours a day. You will have, though, in the end, there is a tendency you have to burn the midnight oil. Because that's especially if you're a programmer, as Thomas said. We recommended basically a week before. We said, from that day, that's the last commit. And that's the worst build ever. And then you have 3 days to fix it and get it right and get it working. So there will be a higher chance for overwork. Yeah. I don't know how you dealt with it. You had a lot of you felt this effect of people showing up different time
Yeah.
a day, right?
Yeah, we had quite a lot of issues about like a small group of people who had a hard time showing up 9 o'clock in the morning. In terms of schedule, I tried to plan our production so people could be free to go at 4 o'clock to avoid, working too long and having maybe an hour and a half of transportation to go home and stuff like that. I mean, I live in Roskilde, so usually if people would be free to go around 4 o'clock, maybe I needed to talk a bit with the director or someone else, have a meeting, then it's 5 o'clock, and then I'd had to go home. So just to like have the possibility to go home and make dinner and have a social life once in a while, I think it was nice that we tried to end the day around 4 o'clock and plan like a buffer deadline in the end, so we avoided the situation of sitting around the clock.
There's a tendency, and I tried to make a joke about it. I'm sorry to that made it sound unclear. My message was basically, it is. I mean, everybody has, social obligations. We can have a sick boyfriend or girlfriend, or we can have, things happens in the family, or you get ill. Things happens, and that's. I mean, of course we count with that. I'm just saying, it is from experience from these guys. It's very hard semester. So that's just what I'm saying. I recommend, if you really want to do it, you're also working when you go home because you think so much about it.
But Thomas has 2 cats, just to be clear about that.
I have some questions. Is it also hard in mediology context? I don't know. Is it like a normal semester, or do you spend a lot of more time? I can't imagine you doing it, but.
Well, in extension of what they said, I learned the value of working day hours. Like from 9 till 4, that's what I'm doing now on my master's. I learned it here. It's so nice to be able to show up somewhere, have a computer there or something, and work. And then have a nice lunch, and then work. And then go home and not work, which is something I've always been really liberal with when I did the work, mostly the night before it had to be done. But having working day hours is really, really nice, and it helps you get a lot done and not feel like you're rushed or something like that. So like that, it might feel very different, depending on how you have been working in the group. It can be very different from that, but I loved it, absolutely.
I think it's an interesting difference coming from university studies and stuff like that, where you might be used to working in groups with some kind of big project. But at DADIU, at one point, it's a lot more structured. It's like full-time, regular working hours. But on the other hand, you are more alone. You're more on your own in some way. It's not like there's a teacher coming in every minute and checking on you. So it's very much up to project manager and directors who set some kind of direction for the project and be like, okay, are people here on time, and do all the administration. So that's quite a change, I think, from other projects I've done at university. And it's tough if you can't let go of your role when you get home. I think especially with the project management role, I really had to remind myself to be like, okay, now the day is done. I can, take that character off in some way, and remember to do other stuff, because it is very, very demanding to have that schedule.
We have another question down here.
Is it possible in any way to actually come in group with someone you know, or can you choose that, or some way?
No,
not at all.
You can't choose.
Oh.
That's what we decide. Okay. And there's no science in it, but I have I have these roles I have to fill out, and I have a set of directors, and I have different people with skills. We have certain ADs, art directors. So some we get, some we have to pick because there's so many who wants. And what I'm looking for, as I said, I try to find a sort of robust team, because it's a tough job, and someone who wants to be challenged, and especially about the project managers. I simply try to scare the shit out of them in the interview, because it's as Amanda says, it's about people, and some people are crazy. They're crazy in a wonderful way, but they're crazy. We have to it doesn't come for free. I have to do some practical work, embracing it and using it, because it might sort of go completely against what I think is right. And that's really the hard thing with DADIU, that we have to contain the wonderful craziness of all the others. Is it a fair way to put it?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge of being a project manager is that you can't lose your shit in front of the team. No matter how crazy people are acting, if they're shouting or crying or not doing their job, you can't just lose your shit and start screaming and throwing the computer out the window, even if you really want to. So like finding some way to vent or blow, get the frustration out somewhere else than in your team, because you also need to be discreet about it and not start, talking behind people's backs and stuff.
Yeah, I'm pushing a little bit because time is running. Yeah. So we have 2 more questions. I think we take that you first.
So you have very specific roles, right?
Yeah.
So let's say a project manager, how much of a creative influence do they have?
I tend to, and I take it on me to explain it, because I tend to say to the project managers, try not to influence yourself in the idea making of the game. You are part of the process, but your job is sort of facilitate the process instead of sitting and candidating a certain idea. Because what happens with you, and this sound difficult, but I think especially because you're dealing with, you're responsible for the team, and the game director is responsible for the vision. That's a traditional way of putting it. We can put more details into it, but that's in a rough way. You own the production apparatus, and they own the idea. It is blended, of course, but that gives you a strength if you are deducted from, having too much emotion in the game. Because, hey guy, who do you think you're talking with? You're talking with me. And I'm the evil executive producer who says, I don't fucking care about your game features. Cut it in half. That's also one of the great pedagogical things we have in this DADIU thing is half. We have a guy coming out and he's fantastic at shouting it. And he has a wonderful story that tells all your great ideas. He is fun. But I think that's why I tend to say, if you want to be a project manager, let's working with you, not participating in developing the idea, but working from how much does it take? Have we covered all bases? Is there enough for the programmers? So you're sort of stepping out in that kind of position. There's a lot of, I'm following up a lot with the project manager, so you will see me a lot in that role, because that's one of the things I know a little bit about. And I think, the game directors, they can be super emotional, invested in the game. And I tend to say, let the project manager be as little emotionally invested, but responsible for the team. Does it make sense?
Yeah, you want a machine. No, it's just a joke, just a joke.
No, I want a robot.
Yeah, robot.
No, I want something that's much more difficult. I want 360 degrees. And this is a lot of this education is about managing, taking things from one point to another point. I think I have a tendency to answer too long. I'm sorry. Please.
Yeah, the last thing is on the homepage is we already assigned to some specific roles.
Yeah.
It's the same question, right? We already assigned to some specific roles, but is it possible to search for some kind of dispensation? For example, if you're coming from mediology, you have programming, game design, or level design. But if you actually use your whole education on doing 3D figures, animation, and rigging and stuff, can you search for being on the visual?
Apply for something else.
Yeah.
It is. The structure of DADIU is that all the education staff participating, they're paying a flat fee for just being part of it, and every student they're sending, they're paying another fee. That's how the financial things, and then we have a little bit of money from the culture ministry. So that means every education has sort of like booked in, we are sending students for this position and this position, and they pay for that. So it's, but we see.
But not so much that. We also vet all educations coming into DADIU that approved by the other educations in DADIU. So the answer to your question is no. We cannot. You can only apply as the position
Your,
your education is approved
Yeah.
as. There's a long approval process for an education to change. It happened to mediology actually from last year, I think, where we've been going through a process because a lot of students wanted to apply as game designers and level designers. In the past, there's only programmers, so we went through a long process where they applied, and now it's possible to apply as game designers as well.
I tend to recommend, we had, a producer, a project manager last year who was very skilled in programming. And one of the things I had to put my foot down was saying, you don't program. Do not program. You're a project manager and you're not writing code. And he said, but I can do it better. And they said, yeah, but don't. That's not your role. We're role playing here. We're not putting in everything we can. So that's one of the aspects that goes into that. Okay, anything else? Otherwise, I would say super duper thank you to you guys. I'm really glad you learned so much about programming because that made me very happy to hear. And thank you for you guys showing up. We will stay here for about 10 minutes more if you have any sort of questions you want to discuss with us. Thank you for coming and hasta la vista.
Nej, det kan man ikke. Men man kan godt tage det semester.
Ja, vi ses.
Stine?
Jeg skal også som kreativ.
Jeg har med lavbrug. Jeg tror også, det bedste, du kan gøre.
Christine? Christine?